loves, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nai Nicole, and I am the host of the podcast One Strong Hand. Some of you may recognize me on Spotify or here on YouTube. And, it's a play on words for those of you who are new here. One Strong Hand is about resilience, it's about disabilities, it's about self-care, self-development, community, all of that stuff. And of course, it's a play on words because, of course, my hand is a little short, it's a little small, but it's a little cute though. But that does not mean that it is weak. And so I wanted to do a little play on words when it came to that. So One Strong Hand came about, and again, it's just about community and hearing other people's stories and the things that they have going on in their everyday lives, and if they want to speak out about it and talk about their experiences and how they've made it up until this point, living with a disability or without a disability. So I just wanted to kind of introduce myself in that way for those who are new here. This week has been a lot. It has been a lot, and I hope that you've all had hopefully an okay week, decent week, just really tending to yourself. I actually wanted to kind of dwindle into that conversation about rest because, wow, this week, if anything, this was one of the weeks that has taught me a lot about rest and what it means to rest, what it means to be quiet, be still, and go inward. And so I do have my laptop here. I will start scripting all of my writing, so then that way I can stay on task. I have a very bad habit of saying quite a lot, especially when I'm trying to think of the next words. So if you see me looking over, I'm looking at my laptop. So again with the but it's okay. I'm learning. We're learning on this journey, girl, or whoever you are. We're learning on this journey, okay? So, of course, in the real world, it is looked down on, especially when it comes to rest. People, I think sometimes people have this preconceived notion of resting as being lazy. And in the world, in society, we are taught to keep going and hustle culture and resting when you're dead and doing all of these other things that are so not conducive to our health, either mental, spiritual, social, physical, whatever the case may be. Rest is a huge part of our health, and outside of just working out and eating healthy and all of the above, drinking water, rest is very, very important. And so this week, if anything, has taught me so much about life and about resting. And I won't get too deep into it because it was definitely a very, very long week, to say the least, a very long week. And I've learned so much about life when it comes to, it's very fragile. Life is very, very fragile. And I think it's, sometimes it takes those certain moments in our lives, whether you are on the brink of whatever the case may be. It could be something that just kind of triggers you or shifts you back into reality of, hey, life is very fragile and I need to tend to that in ways that I know how, in ways that I can. And so with this past week has taught me to rest, but also to understand my boundaries and to be okay with saying no. I think sometimes with the society and the world that we live in, when it comes to working and not resting as much, we sometimes feel bad for saying no, and that shouldn't be the case. People should not be obligated to your time, to your energy, to your space if you don't want them to. And the responsibility, or not responsibility, but that decision is up to you. It doesn't lie on the other person. And I think that sometimes, in this world that we live in, no is just not accepted for some reason. No is just not accepted when it should be a full, complete answer, a full, complete sentence. No one is obligated to your time, energy, or space unless you open those doors up. And so even when it comes to resting, same thing. You're not obligated to text people back right away or answer calls right away, or whatever the case may be. I think we're in such of a drive-through type of life where it's like everyone wants everything so quickly, so fast. And it is okay to take your time, especially when it comes to resting. As someone, with a disability, rest is not optional for me. That is a survival mode. I need to rest because of the many surgeries I've had, on my back, having minor scoliosis, having a radial club hand, having pseudo tumor. Like, I've had so many things medically in my life that I've had to tend to, that rest is not an option. Like, it is my survival and I need it, and no is a part of my survival. So if I can't do it at the moment, I'll get to it. But you just have to understand that sometimes people are not going to receive that well, and that's not on you. You need to tend to yourself. You are the most important thing. Of course, your family, your friends, your partner, your spouse, everybody's important that's in your life, but you are most important, and you cannot give if you are not giving to yourself first. So that is very important. Radical self-care is just not about bubble baths and a mask, and it's important, sure, if you want to do that. I love having bubble baths. I just recently got got my water heater fixed the other day, so I have been enjoying my baths. I love it. But it's really just about giving yourself permission to slow down and breathe when it comes to radical self-care and resting and saying no and slowing down. So just be mindful of that. And again, just kind of going back to the problem. The problem with the world is that the world glamorizes burnout and on go all the time. It glamorizes it because if you are resting, you're lazy. Or if you are working nonstop, oh, you're just, we don't know how you do it. How are you doing this? You're just going nonstop. You're amazing. You're incredible. And it's just like, well, yeah, I'm incredible, but I'm on the inside, I'm struggling. My mental health is struggling. So it's very important to have those moments of rest. The world is always going to tell you, certain things are, oh, you can't do that, you can't do this. And it's just like, well, how am I supposed to keep going? How am I supposed to tend to myself? How am I supposed to be a part of my community, help my community, if I can't tend to myself and rest and slow down and shut my phone off for a bit or say no? Everyone just feels so open and obligated to your space, your time, and energy. And sometimes it's okay to shut it off. You do not need to be productive for 12 hours a day. You don't have to do certain things. You just don't. And it's important that with productivity, without the rest, it is like a car with no gas. Like, you're not going anywhere. And so you need that gas, and the gas is the rest. So make sure that you are resting and taking care of yourself as much as you can, because like I said, this world will try to run you to the ground and will tell you that you can't do certain things, and oh, you're lazy, and no, like, resting isn't laziness. It is a strategy. It is totally a strategy. It allows you to create, it allows you to create, thrive, and show up fully as yourself and in your life. You can't move forward without rest. And again, like I said, this past week has shown me so much when it comes to life in general. Life and resting and boundaries and, saying no, which is boundaries. And I feel like with this past week, I have slowed down so much because I have come to a point of realization that, again, like I said, life is very fragile. Life is very precious. It is so, so precious. And life is long, but also life is short, And for me, I had to, up until this point, I've always felt like I was falling behind because I wasn't getting to a place that other people were getting to, or people my age were getting to places that I wanted to be, And so I think that's also a part of the toxic societal mindset of you have to keep going. You have to keep you need to do this. You need to work for 24 hours. And it's just like everyone's path is different. We don't have a one size fits all type of life. This life is very different for all of us. We may have a lot of similarities, a lot of things that we are, trying to do that may seem similar, but a lot of this is not a one size fits all life. And you are aligning with your own rhythm. Everyone's frequency is different. You can't tune into someone else's frequency or their radio to try to copy what it is that they're doing. Up until that point, they've had a lot of different obstacles than you. They've had a lot of different things that they had to go through. That's different from you. Now, might be some similarities, but the intricacies of life when it comes to your journey and getting to the point of where you need to get to is so different from everyone. So you can't base, your life and somebody else's life like, oh, they're 33 and they're married and have kids and all this stuff, and I'm sitting here and you can't base it off of that. And so rest, of course, is a part of that journey, because when you feel like you're falling behind, you feel like you should be catching up, and it's just like you're not catching up to anyone. You're on no one's schedule but your own. And so again, going back to the radical self-care, choosing yourself, in a world that wants to drain you. That is radical self-care, is when you are choosing yourself in a world that wants to drain you. And you do that, you choose your radical self or your radical self-care and choosing yourself by choosing to rest and saying, I'm not letting this world drain me of their societal norms or their, the things that they want me to do. And if I'm not doing it, then I'm not a person in society that's doing what they're supposed to be doing to contribute. Like, no. And then the science and the rest, the science and soul of rest. There's real science behind this. Studies show that quality rest improves memory, reduces stress, boosts your immune system, and helps you make better decisions. A couple of things that I've done within the past week, and I keep saying the past week because it's been such a reveal for me, or realization for me, that I need to take myself seriously when it comes to my rest, and not worrying about trying to rush things, not trying to rush processes, not trying to compare myself with others and where they're at in their journey, not trying to give myself such a due date or a timeline. Now, granted, if you want to write things on your calendar just to make sure you're on top of everything, that's totally fine. But it's also just important to not feel like you are on such a restriction. Time is time is there. Time is there for you, and you have all the time in the world until you don't. And so, of course, granted, like I said, if you have timelines and due dates, again, it's a thin line between self-care and productivity, and ensuring that you know how to differentiate the two. Of course, productivity, we all have things that we need to do. We all have deadlines. We all have things in our calendars. Maybe if you have kids, your kids' schedule might be super busy, so you need to stay on top of it. Totally understandable. But also understanding that if you do not take care of yourself, you will be going nowhere. And so it's very important just to make sure you have that balance of self-care, talking and tapping in with yourself, have those conversations with yourself, and being understanding that some days, you're going to need that rest. And if your body needs the rest, do not tell your body no. Because again, going back to this week that I had, my body was at the point of saying no. And so I had to ensure that I was like, you know what? I need to change my whole schedule around. Everything that I've been doing up until this point needs to be flipped and reversed, like Missy Elliott. So a couple of things that you can do, when it comes to your rest. Of course, rest can be mental, emotional, spiritual. It could look like turning off your phone for an hour, taking a slow walk, You don't need a destination. Just go somewhere. Just take a walk. Saying no to plans you don't have energy for, or just lying in bed staring at the ceiling. Sometimes I do that, and it's actually very freeing, because it's like sometimes you don't want to think about anything. Sometimes you just want to just be, and be still, be quiet, and be in tune with yourself. And so if staring at the ceiling is something that you want to do, or you're craving just for your quiet time, then do that. You don't have to listen to music. If you do, sometimes I recommend maybe listening to some frequency music. I love listening to handpan music, which is amazing because it just zones me right in. And so while I am staring at the ceiling, that's what I'm listening to. For someone like me, I've navigated life with a disability. And like I said, rest for me is not optional. It is survival. But it's also empowerment. Resting is saying to yourself that I value myself enough not to burn out. And that's very powerful to do, Going on to practical tips to slow down. So I wrote down a list of things that I have done. And it's very important because sometimes you're asking like, okay, so how do I slow down? Especially if your mind is constantly thinking, you're constantly on go. How do I slow down when it feels like everything is just moving at 200 miles an hour? Rest, schedule rest like an appointment. In your calendar, in your busy schedule, again, understandable. You have kids, you have husband, wife, spouse, whoever it is that you're dealing with, you're taking care of your family, or you just might be busy just with work, with entrepreneurship, whatever the case may be. Set a schedule to rest. Put rest in your calendar. It can be for 10-15 minutes. Take deep breaths, do breathing exercises, do meditation, or stare at the ceiling, stare at the wall, like literally watch the paint dry for 10-15 minutes out of your day. And you could do that a couple of times a day, but schedule your rest like it is an appointment. You are making an appointment with yourself to check in with yourself. So do that. Set boundaries, protect your energy by saying no. Again, no has been the most amazing word that I've used maybe for the past 2 years, because up until that point, I was such a people pleaser, and I was like, oh my God, like if I say no, then people are going to be mad at me. They're going to look at me a different way. They're going to, whatever silly things I was saying to myself at the time. No has been such a fabulous word for me, because I have found that no is not only my boundaries, but it just feels so good. It feels good when I don't feel like it. And I don't have to explain to you why I don't feel like it. I don't need to give an explanation. I don't need to write paragraphs. I can just tell you no. And that is all you need to know. So with micro rest, even 5 minutes of deep breathing, between tasks can reset your nervous system. So while you're working, while you're, working your business, while you're taking care of your kids, whatever it is you're doing, while you're driving, take those 5 minutes of deep breathing. It's so helpful and so useful just to take a step back and reset your nervous system. And because, when you're resetting your nervous system, you're able to kind of start on a clean slate. And that's what you want. You don't want to be stressed for the full day. You want to give yourself some time to take a step back. Like I said, schedule an appointment with yourself, a resting appointment with yourself. Part of that resting appointment could be a breathing exercise. It could be so many different things, but ensure that you are taking care of yourself and checking in with yourself as much as possible. Also, a digital detox. With everything going on in the world, all of the madness, all of the chaos, you want to ensure that you are taking a digital detox. That is so, 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 so important to your mental health, your spiritual health, all types of health, because I tell you, when you are consuming everything 24/7, it feels suffocating. It feels exhausting. It feels like you are in a hamster wheel, for 24 hours a day. And so it's so important that you take a step back, even from digital, social media, technology, whatever the case may be. Make sure that you are also tending to your mental health as much as possible, because your mental health, your spiritual health, and your physical health, they all coincide with one another. And if you are constantly ingesting digital, media or social media, whatever the case may be, you are not tending to yourself. You're not tending to your self-care. And understanding that, of course, wanting to have awareness with what's going on in the world, that's totally fine. Sometimes what I do when I am feeling very overwhelmed with the world, I normally would just take maybe like 5-10 minutes, out of my morning or my evening to just check the news or check, whatever local stuff that's going on. Just 10, 15, like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, up to 15 minutes at least, just to check to see what's going on. And once that 15 minutes is up, I'm like, okay, I'm tapped out. Like I don't want to take anything else. And, it's important to do that because, again, if you are constantly ingesting everything, all of this energy is continuously consuming you, and you want to make sure that you are, again, scheduling an appointment with yourself. If you have, maybe schedule a little 15-minute news appointment. Okay, if I want to check the news or if I want to check something that's going on, let me schedule that little break in my day so I can check it and then so I could check out. So I think that would be really important. And celebrate your rest. Do not feel guilty for resting. I've had a habit of doing the same thing where it's like, I feel like I should be doing something. I feel like I should be moving around. I feel like I should be just doing something. And so it's important for you to reframe your rest. When you reframe it, you reframe your mindset, and then you actually don't feel so bad when you start to say, you know what, this actually feels good for me. So reframe it to resting equals recharging to thriving. You can't thrive if you're not rested. You can't thrive if you're not sleeping well, And so celebrate those moments of resting, recharging, and thriving. It's super important. And so the last little bit that I want to bring to your attention is, the next time you feel like slowing down, it doesn't mean that you're falling behind. Remember this, that rest is radical, rest is resistance, and most of all, rest is power. Your worth is not measured by how much you produce. It is measured by who you are, and that person deserves care, space, and stillness. So yeah, that's my last little bit. I would love to hear from you, just what you've been doing when it comes to your rest, when it comes to your boundaries, when it comes to saying no. And, what ways do you like to rest? What ways do you like to schedule an appointment with yourself? And just remember, slowing down is the ultimate glow up. It is the ultimate glow up. Again, you can't go anywhere if you're not rested. You just can't. You're not going anywhere if you are not rested. So the last thing I want to bring is a nice little affirmation card. I have this beautiful deck of cards with me. And what I've been doing is pulling a card at the end of the video just to kind of leave you off on a good affirmative note that you can take with you. And so the card of the day is self-discovery. So I embark upon the transformative expedition of self-discovery, fearlessly delving into the depths of my being, unveiling the essence of my true self, embracing authenticity as my guiding light. I live in alignment with my innermost values and desires, radiating a profound sense of wholeness and fulfillment. Love it. That is amazing. Yes. Well, thank you so much for watching again. I will be back next week. Of course, like I said, last week was a bit of a challenge, but I was in resting mode, so I am not going to feel bad for it. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to dropping more videos and, of course, hearing from you. So drop some things down in the comments about how you are going to be resting a little bit this week. And remember to check in with yourself, set your little rest appointments, and tend to yourself. Tend to yourself as much as you can. So, peace.